Well, hello my friends, it's Shawn Petite. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am popping in before I start creating. I don't typically do this, but I wanted to explain one thing before I started so you knew what I've done and what I'm using. So I have created, and I'll use in this project some stamped and not stamped, but stamped with my stencil, and then just regular stenciled images, and I've done that on rice paper. Oh, I just positively love it. But I wanted to show you how I did this so that you, if you want to, you can do this too. And it's so wonderful because the rice paper disappears into the background, and it's kind of a risk-free way to get a design. Okay, so this is the rice. There's a lot of different types of rice papers out there. I'll have a link to what I use. I just got this off of Amazon. It's Jack Richardson's rice paper. This is a 12 by 18. There's other sizes. There's smaller sizes. And I love working with rice paper, and I don't do it enough, and I think I probably will be doing more, but anyway, so I've got a piece of rice paper out here, and there's kind of a soft, shinier side, and then there's kind of the matte textural side, and I create on the matte textural side. I have a piece of copy paper that's underneath my paper, just because it kind of bleeds through. And I'm just going to show you real quickly how I do this, and just a couple of things that might help you maybe finesse doing this, because you have to kind of work relatively quickly. Brushing paint on it can soak the paper and then it can tear. What I like about rice paper is it's much sturdier than working with tissue paper. I still love tissue paper because it really dissolves right away. I still get a little bit of kind of a haziness somewhat with the rice paper, so it's best on lighter backgrounds. But in general, it's awesome, and even that kind of hazy feeling is really wonderful. So I just want to show you what I did really quick. Let me grab. So what I designed the new stencils for was to be able to, one, of course, stencil with them, but then to stamp with them and get this kind of interesting reverse image. And so I'm going to show you both real quick. And I grabbed a couple of colors, and let me pull my palette out here so that you can see what I am doing. So I'll just show you real quick. So I've got some colors out, and I'm going to do some gold, and I'll do some black too, just real quickly. But I have a small brayer, and I will just run my paint through my brayer and load up my brayer. You can also paint it on with a brush if you want. I often do that more times than this. But when I'm doing a bunch of them, and I like to do a bunch at a time, and this is really, it's kind of like jelly printing, because once you start, it's like, oh, I gotta do this, because you see something else, and it's just so awesome. And you're like, oh, I bet this pattern or this stencil would work. And so you could stamp on it too. Of course, you know, I'm the stencil, I love my stencils, so I'm obviously gonna do stencils. But you could, I mean, rice paper has so many fun things that you can do. So, and the reason I'm using my brayer is because I want that real rustic look. I want it to be really, really rustic. And I want it to be kind of blotchy and not predictable. And so I'm just going to run my brayer over the top here. And this reminds me of a stamped or carved image, and that's what I love. And of course, that's what a lot of these images are called. This one's the Italian elements or Spanish elements. And they're not going to be perfect, and that's what I really love about them. So, and then I will take this, look at how gorgeous that is. And I will just put this down, and I'll put my paper towel over the top of it and just kind of press that out. And each one's slightly different. It's like I said, it's like jelly printing. Sometimes you just never know what you're going to get. But you've got this wonderful, soft image down here that now I can take and add. And you'll see in the video that I've taken bits and pieces of these soft images and use them. And if I don't like it, I can take it up. I can add it after the fact, and I can put it on top of things, and the paper underneath shows through. And again, you'll see in the video. So I just want to do a couple of random things real quick so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And so you can see how it kind of seeps through the paper. And it's still sturdy enough, but you can't touch this when it's wet still because it's becomes fragile, kind of like tissue paper. And so I just want to quickly do just a little bit here for you so you can see what I'm talking about. And the quicker you do this, the better, because the paint stays wet. And it helps if you put a towel down. So, yeah, love it. And then you could load this up with even more paint if you want. But this is going to be great. In fact, I think I want to do that. I'm going to add a little bit of gold here to my paint. I'm mixing my colors now, which is great. I love doing that. But I like this one. I'm going to do the little one. Got a little metallic gold in there. Oh, it makes me happy. So you can do colors, you can do, I like blacks and whites a lot because that's usually kind of my accent color or different things that I will go to. You can do all different kinds. You can do the solid gold like I did. Some solid gold here. This is a mix of, this is bronze and black. Look at how gorgeous that is. I mixed more bronze and black down here. So I kind of went to town on this and just had some fun. In fact, I'm going to do this one real quick. I'm going to mix these two colors together and see what I get. Things are falling off my desk because I get so excited. Scared the dog. All right. I mixed those two colors. I like those two colors together. Put that down. Of course, you could probably brayer over this to get a better, flatter image. Oh, look at that. That's amazing. I love that. So that is it, my friends. I just wanted to show you really quick what I was using. And of course, all the supplies will be listed on the blog. So let's get creating. All right, so here are the papers that I'm going to be creating with. This is a collage pack that's going to be on sale to you this week, and they are lovely papers. And I have just quickly done a quick gesso, just rough. I wanted a lot of texture for the background. And I'm starting out with some Nova Color paints and some additional gesso. And really all I'm trying to do right now is get color down and get clarity on my thoughts about what inspired this piece. And so I chose colors that aren't typically like the pink and the green are not something that I typically go to. But wait till you see the background and how wonderful it is. And I will definitely be using this. And I could totally see some flowers and things happening with this piece. So I've got Nova Color, quinacridone magenta, and some green gold. And then I've got some Arctic Blue from Arteza, which is one of my favorite colors. It's really odd color combination, but I just really wanted to kind of get something down and really kind of start bringing my thoughts together on this piece and what it was going to mean and the story and all of that. And so that's usually what the background is for most of the time anyway. I'm covering it up with just some quick gesso and then just kind of making some quick swipes. I really want it to be messy and textural and lots of interest, and to really kind of start developing where I was going with this piece. But look at how gorgeous this alone looks. And then when I mat it down with my paper towel, it's so good. And I love these colors together. So every time I create, there's always something learned, something new. I'm just taking a rag and kind of softening some of those harsh edges just a tiny bit. And just kind of blending things together just a little bit more. Just taking my paper towel and kind of matting things down. So now that that's dry, I'm going to add some of the papers from that collage pack. I knew I wouldn't use in the focal point, so I wanted, again, this is for texture, and then I wanted some of those pieces to kind of peek through. But you never know where something's going to lead, or what actually is going to show. So not too much of the background paper show through, which is fine because I knew that I really wanted them there mainly for texture and interest. So I've got some slate gray now, and again, I'm just kind of going back over, pushing it back. Each layer you add color and then you push it back, you add color and you push it back to get to where you want to go and to get to the story that you want to create. And I love using, this is a large palette knife. A larger palette knife will give you broader strokes and you'll have less control, overall. And that's really what I wanted. I wanted it to be kind of just very rough. And you can see now that I'm pulling back some of that paint in certain areas because I was trying to keep some of those, and they do show through on some of the areas, but I was trying to keep some areas visible, trying to keep some of that wonderful color still showing through. So that's all dry, and now I'm kind of starting to build up to the actual focal points and that kind of thing. So this is the Vintage Lace 1 stencil. I'll be using, or not Vintage Lace, Vintage Wallpaper 1 and 2 stencils. And these 2 stencils will be on sale to you this week. This is the Vintage Wallpaper 2 stencil. Look at how gorgeous they are. I'm just pushing gesso through my stencil. Again, that pattern is going to show up in the most beautiful way. So this is Plum Suede by Americana and gesso, and this is the color that I really wanted to kind of have in the background. And look at how gorgeous this looks. All the layers are there. You can see them little by little peeking through, and every single layer adds interest. It adds to the story. It adds personality. It just makes it unique. So Plum Suede and gesso, and look at how gorgeous, and that stencil area just shines through. And I'm going back with a little bit of alcohol and again picking up some color in certain areas so that I can just kind of have them peek through and again tell the story. Adding just a little bit of white just for some kind of distressed look with my palette knife and some gesso. And I will come back and just kind of mat this down a bit just to kind of soften it up. Wanted it to be real uneven. So I've cut my papers out of the collage pack and I'm putting them down with Liquitex matte medium. I'm using my collage pack. I'm using the wonderful images that we stamped and stenciled on the rice paper. We stamped with our stencils, but I'm just putting all of my papers down now. And I used this particular collage pack because it had the florals, and to me that was me making something meaningful out of my story. It was the beauty of my story. And so that's why I chose this collage pack. And you can see I've got my phone out now. So I take a picture before, like I cut everything out, I lay it out, then I take a picture, because I really wanted things to go back into their particular place, because I had them layered just right. And I wanted the rice papers to be in the right spot, because they go transparent, I want those papers underneath to show through. So I knew that I wanted to get them back in the right spot. So I use my phone as a reference. I take a picture, and then as I put everything down, I will refer back to it over and over again. You can see, because it's funny how quickly you forget where everything was at. But look at how beautifully those rice papers just fall right into the background and allow everything to show up. That gold, the gold on the rice paper is amazing. And one thing I love about the rice paper is that it's a little bit thicker, and so it kind of leaves a little bit of raised area. It almost looks encaustic like, and so much fun. I cannot wait to explore this a little bit more with different colors and, you know, all kinds of different things. So, but those rice papers just blend right into the background, and this is a great way to add elements without any risk, because you can take things up, add just bits, take parts without ruining your background that you just spent time on. So much goodness. Look at that. Look at that ink. This is Liquitex acrylic ink in quinacridone magenta and yellow oxide. And I'm mixing the two to kind of get this kind of corally, yellowish, yummy goodness color. But watching that ink just explode into that water is so much fun. And I put down quite a bit of color at first and kind of dilute it out a little bit, and then pick it up with my towel to add, you know, either a little bit to pick up a little bit to take away some of the color so that it's not so strong. It always dries lighter. But I want some inconsistency in the color. I want some areas to be lighter and some areas to be darker. So I use my towel to kind of pick that up. And this color, I'm bringing back that color from the background. And so what I saw in the background I loved, and so I'm just kind of bringing some of those things back to the focal point. So this is Liquitex acrylic ink it's called muted gray, but it has this beautiful plum purple undertone. Oh my goodness, so pretty. And so when it dries, it does kind of dry gray, but it's got this wonderful purple undertone, soft, subtle, so pretty. And then I'm just going to age it up and give it some real good grungy character with some, again, Liquitex acrylic ink in transparent raw umber. And I want these bits of ink to be really random and unpredictable and just kind of all over the place, because I want it to look like it's aged and it's been sitting and weathered and that kind of thing. So now that all of that has dried, and it is wonderful, I'm coming back in with some soft pastels. These are not my Soho soft pastels. These are a new brand that I just picked up that I'm kind of experimenting with that have some really wonderful colors. I'll have those again, of course, listed in the supplies on the blog. But I'm just now adding a tad bit of color and some marks. I've used somewhat of the same colors, some greens, some yellow, a little bit of that pinkish color, and then a tiny bit of blue in there to get kind of a blue-green to resemble some of the paint color that's in one of those stenciled areas that we did on rice paper. And really just kind of adding the finishing touches, finessing it just a tiny bit. printed out my quote on rice paper, and it is lovely. Oh my goodness. Works just the same as tissue paper. It doesn't go quite as transparent as tissue paper, but on a light background, it worked perfectly. So I will now continue to shade and kind of add some of that character and interest with my General's charcoal pencil. I will shade around the edges with my black soft pastel. And that is it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed today's project. If you did, subscribe and like and all those kinds of things, share. Again, all the supplies and everything will be listed on the blog, and the link to the blog will be down below in the YouTube description box. I hope you stick around for the conversation at the end. It's a good one about this quote and this book that I'm reading. Oh my goodness, it is a good one. And so I hope you stick around for that, and that we can talk about creating a meaningful story in our lives. All right, my friends, I will see you next week. Well, hello, loves, and happy Sunday. This was so much fun. Oh, the colors, the background, all the things. Oh my goodness. I went over everything in the video, and let me see what stencils. The stencils that are going to be on sale this week are the two vintage wallpaper stencils that I used in the background. Yeah, those two, I just love those. And they were so beautiful in the background. So, and I don't think I have any other announcements. I've had quite a few announcements every week. Oh, I did do a collaboration video with Celise McLaughlin. She's a previous creative team member, and I'll have a link to that in the blog post if you want to take a look at that. And that's really all for it was a calmer week this week. So for this piece, let's move on to this piece. I knew what I wanted, what I was painting. I knew the emotion and where that was coming from, and the story and all that, but I didn't know really where to start. And I will say this, I spent a lot of time on the background, and part of that is because that's where I find the voice. That's where I find where I want to go. So I will lots of times layer and layer until something happens and it's like, oh yes. But the background, those colors that I first put down, I immediately knew that I wanted to do that for a different project, but that the colors that I put down together were so gorgeous. And while they got covered up in the process, I still brought them back somewhat in the actual main focal point area. So there's just always so many lessons in every single layer when I'm creating. And it always, that time when you just begin those first layers, it's just such a great place to explore your feelings, emotions, and find your story in your piece. So, I had fun with the rice paper. Oh, so many projects coming with that. I can't wait. But the quote says, "You have the freedom to make your story meaningful." So good. So this came from, and I am going to read it because her words are just so fantastic. This is from Dr. Edith Eger. She is a Holocaust survivor. And she's got a book called The Gift, 12 Lessons to Save Your Life. And she's just, wow. Anyway, so I was reading her book. I recently got it. And I want to just read you the parts of this that inspired this piece. So she says, we all have this capacity to choose, period. We all have a capacity to choose, no matter what. When nothing helpful or nourishing is coming from the outside, that is precisely the moment when we have the possibility to discover who we really are. It's not what happens to us that matters most. It's what we do with our experiences. When we escape our mental prisons, we not only become free from what has held us back, but free to exercise our own free will. I first learned this difference between negative and positive freedom on Liberation Day, 1945. And I'm going to skip over this because it's not a pretty story. But she goes on to say that as they were liberated, those who were able to walk out of the prison camps were led out. And she said moments later they returned and sat listlessly on the damp grass. And she said, unable to move forward. Viktor Frankl noted, and Viktor Frankl was in the camps where she was at, noted the same phenomenon. When the Soviet forces liberated Auschwitz, we were no longer in prison, but many of us weren't yet able, physically or mentally, to recognize our freedom. We were so eroded by disease and starvation and trauma that we had no capacity to take responsibility for our lives. We could hardly remember who we were. We finally been released from the Nazis, but we weren't yet free. I now recognize that the most damaging prison is our mind, and the key is in our pocket. No matter how great our suffering or how strong the bars are, it's impossible to break no matter how strong the bars, it's possible to break free from whatever is holding us back. It's not easy, but it's worth it. And she goes on to say that she doesn't want people to think that, oh my gosh, my story is not close to being a prisoner of war, of the Holocaust. She said, but that's not my intent. My intent is to say, if I can do it, you can do it. And so that's this is the quote that I wrote out from reading that. I have the freedom. I have the choice. I get to make a choice every single day. No matter what the outside forces are, and they're nothing in comparison to what so many others have endured. Right now, seems like there's no positive outside forces coming at us, but we have the freedom to make our story meaningful, however that looks for you. We get a choice to be free our minds from whatever happened to us. We take that, we don't forget it. We don't say that it didn't happen. It happened, but we let it transform us. We let it change us. We let it guide us. Whatever is happening, however that looks. And we are free to choose every day how our story is going to end. And I'm telling you what, I was so encouraged and fired up, and I did some hard crying and all that kind of stuff. This is so good. Her words are so good. And it gave me great perspective. I'm like, I have nothing to complain about, right? I love it when we get those perspective moments when we're feeling kind of like, woe is me kind of thing. And then we get somebody else's perspective and it's like, okay, alrighty. But we allow our own stories, our own hardships and trials, however little or however big, to help us grow, to help us be free from them and make a meaningful story of our lives. That is it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed today's project. There were so many layers that went into this as I was thinking about what I had just read and creating some of the under layers and kind of messy stuff, and then adding each and every piece was my beautiful layers, my freedom to add the beauty to, what I was working on and what it represented for what I read. I hope today that you are allowing whatever it is that you're struggling with or that you've been hurt by, that you allow that to guide you and teach you. That you use it to grow and learn, and that your mind, that you have the key, you have the choice to choose to take that old story and make a new story, a meaningful story. All right, loves. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday. I hope it's restful, peaceful, and meaningful. That you're creating your meaningful story every day. And I hope that you always, always know that you are loved.